coastline. I'm kind of glad we got a bit of coastline in on the last day. I think it's only befitting after the coastline week that we saw last week. These bans coming in as well. Lion instantly removed. I mean, this is a throwback. When was the last time we saw Lion banned out, you know?
It's been a while since we've seen Lion banned, but he has been used a hell of a lot lately.
So much.
And especially on a map like Coastline, you know, people love their lions, their Dockerbees, their jackals. You can hunt down those players. He's just not usually honored with the spot in the bans. Mirror as well. We've spoken quite a bit recently about how Mirror doesn't oftentimes get banned out quite so much these days just because there are a lot of other operators in rotation. But, you know, she to be taken out. I mean, when I think of Mirror on this map, the main side I think of is Penthouse Theatre.
It is. That's the one that springs to my mind as well. It's kind of strange, isn't it, that we see the Mirror change and the change to all bulletproof glass. It wasn't exclusive to Mirror. But then we start to see her used a lot more, even though a lot of people could see that as a nerf. And then we start to see her trickle into the bans a little bit more. It's like people all of a sudden remember, it's, oh, you know what? Mirror exists now. And it's almost not that Mirror has changed, it's just that other elements of the game have changed, like particularly Hard Breach. And you think, yeah, we can now use the mirror windows to make opening walls a lot more difficult because you can't then place your Selmas, you know, perfectly. And then little things like that. So, yeah, I think it's nice how this sort of balance and circle of life works its way through. Obviously, that isn't necessarily the case here on this map. There isn't that much pressure onto the Hard Breach. Instead, it's really going to be sort of choice uses of Hibana pellets really are going to get a lot of the work done that you need. And even then, it isn't strictly required. We are just hitting a very short pause as we have had a player drop on out. So we're just going to wait to get the full Santos lineup back in. But SDK has rejoined, so I'm sure that we will be hopping on into the game very shortly indeed. No need to do the bans again, as we are already set up to go.
All right, well, unsurprisingly, it's going to be Hookah Billiards for our first sight. Muzi on the Clash. Spoke a little bit yesterday in NIP's game that they played on Villa about how sometimes NIP like to lean into the Clash. Well, they're going to be bringing it out straight away from the get-go. No, they're not. Okay. I was going to say, it's kind of peculiar to see Muzi on the Clash. It's not usually him.
That's the alarm bell. That's the red herring right there. It's like there is not a chance that you're going to see Muzi playing a shield. I would go as far as to say we haven't seen it throughout the entire stage 1 or 2.
Honestly, the next thing I was going to say is, so the interesting thing here is that they've decided to put Muzi on the Clash and have someone like Julio on a Mozzie, which is a real big change of pace for NIP. And then before I could get it out, we were proved to have been scamazed.
Really were. It's a very impressive team that NIP feels. We bring Muzi up there and it really can't go without mention. Pino and Psycho. All three of those guys are in the top 5 for rating currently inside of the BR6. So pretty crazy stuff when you think about it, that they're all on the same team. They're all essentially fighting each other for a spot in that top 5 on rating. And it really just goes to show how dominant this team can be. Now, what performance we see out of them today remains to be seen. They've got a big week of Siege coming up. They're in Coastline, so we're not looking towards strict strategy. We're just going to enjoy some good gunfights and some nice gameplay. But ultimately, it isn't going to be the most well thought out strategic Siege. Instead, it leans into one of NIP's great strengths, and I think that's communication. The way that they're able to transmit that information between one another and deal with an attacking push as it develops. Already, Julio has found a bit of success. Destiny going to respond with a nice frag back onto Muzi. Nothing instantly being directly traded. Cons got himself into an awful engagement there. Julio and him both get chunked on down. Time to hop into the drone and find a bit of intel.
Bear in mind as well, they're still pretty far from the site itself, which is over on Hookah Billiards. So they're doing this quite thorough map clear. I mean, they're doing well at it to have brought down both Julio and Muzi. And I mean, they're fine for time. Pino just getting his revenge with the FMG. shows that maybe it's not quite so simple. It just means you don't have that pressure onto the site itself, and NIP as defenders haven't been forced to return there. You're playing very much into their hands. Kino can just hold on to cool vibes here, and because of where Santos have been attacking, it's almost inevitable that you're going to have a cross into this line of sight.
Oh, how was that happen?
So there's the Toxic Babe canister. And the diffuser is gone. That was a really nice little angle that Hunter could get there. But he's on his own, and he's against 2.
Well, there's going to be no more Toxic Babes for him to worry about, as he can drone through and gather a bit of intel. He knows where at least one player is going to be, but it's always a tough challenge, especially when the pre-fires are coming through, and especially when Psycho is on the other end of a K1A. Never going to be an easy challenge to make. You get the feeling there that it didn't matter what the site was. Like, the site was entirely irrelevant there for NIP, and to a degree for Santos. NIP were just looking to challenge at those points of entry and not really give anything up. And the round was essentially won before Santos even considered approaching the site.
Wow, Holly. Go easy on them.
It was, though. It didn't matter where the site was.
Right. Oh, I guess according to you, this is going to be a 7-0 to NIP then.
Not necessarily that it's going to be a 7-0, but just that the focus from Santos in that round wasn't site-centric. We didn't see anybody inside of Aquarium. We saw one player on Hookah Balcony. That was it.
No, I mean, I totally agree with you. It was that really broad map clear, which, on the one hand, you can totally understand why NIP were playing very off-site, but on the other hand, you're not actually pressuring onto the site itself. You're not potentially going to capitalize on the openings and the floors that are there because everyone else is off-site. You're not forcing NIP out of the positions that they want to play. You're playing into the positions that they have invited you into. So, because so few people were on the site, there is a chance that Santos could have actually, had an opportunity to get in. Now, obviously, you run the risk of then all the defenders come back in and you've got a really difficult post plant. And I understand there are different decisions to balance there. But you are right. There was really nothing about that attack that kind of said, this is for Hookah Billiards. It could have been for any site.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that's often the way that this map plays out. I remember the interview that we had with Sexy Cake after they were able to get the win over Furia a couple of, I think last weekend it might have been, where we saw the coastline played a lot. And Sexy Cake was basically saying, yeah, there's only a couple of entry points and you've just got to try and cover them. One of the entry points is going to be Hookah and Billiards, and Muzi's going to be doing a great job of taking down Destiny, but this time he will be traded 1-for-1. There is a little bit more of a direct approach going on here, as it seems as though the majority of Santos are pulling in the same direction, all looking to take control of Hookah.
Muzi was protected by a shield as well. I assume that went down with the nade too. So that's one piece of utility that isn't going to be downstairs. And that was the only shield too. So there's no shield that's actually down on the site itself. These remaining players who are holding fort on the site will lack that same kind of defensive utility that Muzi had for himself.
I think it's good to see a little bit of the pace taken out of the round as well at this point for Santos. It really allows them the space to fact find, and now they can get themselves comfortable into the map and start to figure out and generate a little bit of a plan as to how they want to move forward. Rise is able to gather some pretty crucial intel that there isn't a lot of people playing inside of Sunrise directly. There is going to be a Vigil, which will show up on this tracker, and it's going to be Psycho. And Hunter just narrowly gets away there with opening up a little bit of the floor. But it really looks as though there could be a plant on the card. Psycho is now relocated, and this is where things could start to get quite dangerous. He's going to be able to take down the Gemini there, and I'll admit, I even got baited a little bit myself. I think Psycho did too. He was getting ready to go on a little bit of a tear, but alas, nothing will happen for the next couple of seconds as more drone work starts to ensue. And now we see the utility starting to be used. Now, Psycho's actually been forced all the way out of Sunrise, and he's going to be inside of Blue now. And that's in part due to this floor being opened up by Hunter. He can now start to hold crossfires and start to cut players off from making that rotation back into sight. Flora is going to clear out any pieces of utility that might be lying in a position to stop the plant from going down as smoothly, as Cons is going to be trying to get that down right now. Now, he is being covered. He's got vertical cover coming in, and he's got a bit of horizontal cover, but you got to win your gunfight if you're going to be going for that. The plant goes down regardless, but kills continue to come in here for NIP. Rise is going to be playing at the top of Cool Vibes, gets challenged by one, but taken out by the second. Pino and Kamikaze there going back-to-back. Cons, who's the guy that got the plant down, and he's now locked into the 1v1. He's got a bit of intel. He's going to pre-fire through onto Julio, and he is going to be able to take him down. A much better approach there from Santos.
Absolutely. And even though a lot of that round was won because of those gunfights that happened towards the end, one thing that I will note that certainly helped to chip down NIP's defense is the fact that NIP weren't running a Jaeger. So a lot of nades were invested from Santos. They actually brought 4 along with them, I think, 'cause they had a sledge and a Yana. And none of them were being stopped by anything. So Muzi's death really early on, the shield going down, them throwing in the nades to that bottom floor a little bit later on to try and remove yet more utility. What that kind of leads to is this weird domino effect where NIP, as they want to come back into the site and they want to be able to, retake, there isn't utility in there that they can rely on, whether that be utility to provide them intel, utility to deny intel for the attackers, anything that could have held back their attack and prevented the strengthening of the position of the attackers in the post plant is no longer there because NIP didn't really have anything to mitigate that when Santos were using those nades. Now, once again, MIP are doing the same thing. They haven't brought a Jaeger for this round either. So it's not something they deem to be a priority, but I do think it was a not irrelevant part of that last round.
Santos showed very good coordination there, and going to have to try and do similar again here. Really liked how Hunter was able to get that upstairs control. The initial push was very successful as well. Being able to remove Muzi. Sure, it cost a player, but it was a big inroad that was never really retaken by NIP. It wasn't an area that they then tried to properly vie back onto. There was a bit of an attempt made at retaking up Cool Vibe stairs, but ultimately it wasn't enough. Con's going to be unsuccessful there with his first Flora's drone, as it will be shot on out before it can move through into the detonate mode. Right, what a kill over onto Pino. Pino with the bionic arm trying to go for the super speed drive-by run out. Falling by the wayside.
Oh, Rise. That was so cheeky. I love it. Well, again, NIP are quite well spread out. Muzi's up above the site as he's going to be holding on as the warden to the upstairs. Don't know yet if that's going to be Santos's approach. We have seen, in that last round, they really focused on the direct aboveness of the site, i.e. hookah. So maybe that is going to be somewhere that they would look to take. We've got someone up in VIP as well. I think this is the thing as well, like with NIP being so spread out over the site, these guys know that they have the mechanical skill to take on these fights. They're not concerned about being on their own, and you can be so irritating and so difficult to work against if you are spread out so far. Now Muzi's going to back off to behind that shield in Master as he got droned out, so maybe anticipating somebody to be pushing. But a lot of this effort right now is... Oh! Ow. I was going to say over on this side of the map, but it'll be Psycho who wins that gunfight out. He does get DB a node, however. I don't think there's anyone around ready to help him.
Unfortunate there for Rise to miss his shot. Chance at finishing off Psycho, but STK has to come in and pick up the pieces. Kamikaze now looking to try and retake. Destiny had already made his way on inside. STK, this is certainly his round to shine. Still 30 seconds left inside of this one. It seems to be a round that has taken a long time to happen. The plan will now start to go down under the cover of STK. 4 kills inside of that round. Just walking around picking up the pieces.
Santos take the lead over NIP. Back to hookah billiards. So NIP, obviously, they had a pretty big loss yesterday against Ints. So it wouldn't be the first of the bottom teams for them to have lost against. And again, as we already spoke about, NIP have comfortably qualified for the Copa Elite Six. They don't have anything to worry about from that perspective. There's that really nice run out. Well, the run out itself was not necessarily really nice, but Rise being ready for the run out was really nice.
It was the reactions from Rise, wasn't it? If we want to go back and scrub the VOD and see if there was a drone in place or there was something that gave him that information, or if it really just was incredible reaction time. I don't know what it is. I don't know why, but I feel like over the course of the last 2 weeks, some of the reaction times that we've seen from the players, regardless of team or whatever it might be, has just been incredible. Some of the snapshot decisions that these guys are making have been very much on point. So good on Rise there for that one. It obviously assisted in Santos being able to come away with the round. And again, we see NIP sort of falling into this spread out play style where they are just happy to almost take a room each and just see how much they can hold. Whereas Santos, on the other hand, are a little bit more considered in this approach. And so far, we've seen them be focused enough to get the plant down a couple of times as well, which has really assisted that round-winning win condition for them, especially with the man counts that they're finding themselves in when that plant is going or has gone down. It's something that's really assisting them. So I think more of the same, really, as far as Santos is concerned. Destiny is currently getting droned in there by Rise. He's going to be moving through into Office and maybe even in through to Blue Bar. In the meantime, Pino just tempted with a bit of a peek onto that kitchen window, but it all seems like risky stuff.
Julio doesn't win out the gunfight he was going for on service, and that gives STK his route into the building. Psycho also very low here, and quite unlike what we saw of NIP back in round number 1, they're actually going to be retreating back to this site. They're not going to be vying for this control of the overall map itself in the same way as before. Still do have a little bit poking and prodding here and there, looking down these stairs, looking across the floors. Muzi, you gotta look where you're going. Cons takes him down. Still a full healthy 5 for Santos, while just 3 players remain for NIP.
Again, not an ideal situation that NIP find themselves in, unable to get a successful trade-off here. And with just about half the round remaining for Santos to work a plan, it'll be fairly straightforward for them to try and execute. Not if Psycho continues to do Psycho things, though. He is able there to take down Rise. A nice peek from the big window. Playing back-to-back with Kamikaze here inside of Billiards. Vertical angles being opened for NIP to now try and work with. Kamikaze does still have a C4 in pocket as well. 2 Toxic Babes on the side of Pino. So a chance here really for NIP to stave this push off. But there are just so many angles that can be held here from Santos. The C4 will be non-effective. What a shot there from STK as he takes down Kamikaze. Popping his head up from behind the bar. Pino, he got a glimpse and he got a chance. He took down Hunter, but ultimately Santos, they had the man advantage there. Destiny, he's going to storm his way on through, pick up those final 2.
Just some very strange reaction times going on from NIP right now, or looking away at the exact wrong moment. It's a bit odd. It makes you wonder, you know, how much are they relying on face checking for their information? It's not really like, well, I don't know, because they've been bringing a Mozzie quite a few times. That should give you some info. Okay, Pino. I mean, he's got a 6-pick off of it. You know the rules. There you go.
It does always make me laugh when you see players pick the quarantined op and then 6-pick off.
I always get a bit anxiety. I'm like, don't, you're gonna get in trouble.
Well, I always just get a bit like, it's kind of cheeky because you're not really showing what you were going to pick.
Yeah, it's
I know
like...
it's kind of the point. I know it's kind of the point of the 6-pick. We're actually in a pause now, so this could be all about to explode into a big steward's inquiry.
Pino is about to be banned from Rainbow Six forever.
That's not true. Please, I've just got to say that isn't true. We are back inside of the game now. It is always a curious one that I do always sort of cast my mind to and say, like, It is a bit annoying because you don't actually get to see what their intention was there, because obviously the intention is never to play the new op, but it kind of gives the game away that everyone else is going to remain the same. You know that it's not going to be, you know, the Legion that's getting 6-picked out into a shield, for example. So, an odd one inside of the pick phase there, but I don't think that the mental mind games from the side of NIP will have done anything there to destable Santos in what they are able to do here. As so far, Santos have been very successful tonight, and it's been in every aspect. They've been there when the trades matter. They've been there on the entry, been there to get the plant down. They've been there to win the gunfights, and the most important thing, and if you can continually do that, well, it doesn't really matter who you're coming up against, NIP or not. They have struggled here and now. The changes that have been made inside of this round, or at least the changes that NIP ought to be thinking about, partly going to be down to that control of Hookah, in my opinion. That was an area that Hunter was able to get himself into very quickly, removing Muzi and then starting to open up the floor. That then further assisted getting the plant down in the later part of the round, because that vertical control was never retaken. Now that dance is happening right now. Muzi is going to be upstairs, but this time he isn't holding as fast. He's looking to just play a little bit more loose on Cool Vibe stairs.
He has some support as well, which is good. You know, you definitely want to have the opportunity for trades should they be required. Also, presence over in kitchen, as that's kind of the other typical route that you might come through if you want to be attacking onto this site and you're going via a different site, I guess. Nade going straight down the vent. Again, Santos have been really playing those nades quite well, especially as NIP are simply refusing to bring anything to prevent them, which, cool, fine, you take your opportunity, why not? Santos have the control of directly above the site, given that NIP was so happy to move out, but you can tell that NIP are also ready for anything that could be coming down those stairs, because regardless of how much Santos may open the floor, they still will have to commute down the stairs to actually get to the site, unless they want to go outside.
C4s as well going to be employed here to try and remove Hunter, and that one is going to land. Pino successful. It's going to leave Destiny to try and hold what angles have been opened. It isn't going to be enough, or as much as if Hunter was still alive and kicking. And there could be a big flank on the cards here as well. NIP are committing to this in quite a real way. Now, looks as though there is a flank drone, because Rise has instantly had his head turned. A yellow ping as well could be an indication that there's something there to give that information. Now, with all this going on, it's going to leave the site relatively empty. Muzi does find a kill onto STK, but as long as they can trade out fairly equally, it might not be the end of the world here. Cons is going to be caught inside of the Toxic Babe smoke, however, as Pino looks to try and push on through, but Destiny catches the fadeaway shot. The final two players on the side of NIP bunching up there, but it didn't matter. Kamikaze, he has the accuracy, he has the SMG-11, and he has a round here for NIP.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was pretty pivotal, the fact that when Hunter got taken down particularly, you know, Santos suddenly lacked the kind of vertical control that they were looking to have. And as a direct result, it meant that NIP were in a much stronger position to defend from downstairs. So whether or not Santos actually got the plant down, NIP still had a lot of room that they could work with. And with limited time, Santos had to attempt that attack. Had Santos not been forced out of Hookah through the method of murder for the C4, then that probably wouldn't have been quite so easy for NIP, because they would have been able to cut the rotations through the site, maybe get a kill or two from above, and then had a much easier time moving into the site, regardless of what route it was they'd opted to take through that. So that was a really pivotal kill, actually, from Pino, because I think it paved the way for the victory at the end of that round.
And that's honestly something that we're expecting here tonight from NIP, is that it's, in my opinion, going to be relatively unlikely that they lose the same site twice. And so far, that's looking like a trend that could continue. Back upstairs to Hookah Billiards now. We'll have to see if NIP choose to approach this in a different way. They've not necessarily been making their adjustments and the changes based on operator selection. It's more about where those operators have been playing and how long they've stuck in one spot. It's something that we've praised NIP for quite regularly in the past, is their ability to adapt. And if Santos are looking to try and pull the same tricks every single time, then they may find it doesn't work as often as they would like. Last round, though, of the attack for Santos, so chance still for them to come away with a little bit of a lead out of this first half. But still, you do just worry about NIP and what their capabilities are. We've not really seen them rocking at 100% over the last couple of play days, and that makes sense. They've qualified in for Copa and got a big week of Siege coming up, so they don't want to give too much away or overexert. But they have got that ability to turn it on when it matters.
Well, one more round to even things up at the half. Kamikaze's going to set things off on a good foot. Good foot. Hey, Kamikaze's doing what I do and not playing with the shotgun on mute. People give me so much flack for that. But I'm just going to say I'm copying my favorite player, Kamikaze. Hunter brings Muzi down, however, to even things out at a 4 versus 4.
A good positioning here from Santos. They've taken a little bit of control here. Sure, it's cost them Destiny, but they can now look to try and nade on through. You do really worry about the lack of ADSs when there's these vents on the roof, as it's a free nade, and sometimes a free nade kill, but NIP are obviously focused to not be in those locations or have utility placed on those half stairs at Cool Vibes or behind the bar inside of Aquarium. They're the two main locations that you're going to try and nade through into. We still feel like we're waiting something to happen here for Santos, and whether that's we're waiting for them to get a little bit of an in or not. But in the meantime, Rise is going to be trying to root out Julio along with STK, but Julio is just a little bit better from inside of Theatre. He's going to find himself one. STK comes through with the trade. Trying to search out these roamers isn't a straightforward ordeal here for Santos, because they haven't got a great deal of time now to execute. And with losing Destiny a bit earlier on, it's going to have lost the lifeline and therefore that ability to remove the shields from afar. A lot of pressure relies on the 2 grenades that are going to be left. STK underneath, going to try and use one as an impact onto the ceiling. It's going to be perfectly placed for Kamikaze. All right, STK. You're going to show some serious map knowledge and skill there, as, you know, he's going to come in with a trade, but 1 versus 1 now as Hunter, he's going to swing past the bomb shafty. I wasn't expecting it to be that aggressive from Hunter, but honestly, he was left with no other choice there. Picks up the final 2, and that is going to be a 4-2 half here for Santos.
I mean, look, I'll be totally honest with you. NIP are playing for gunfights, and Santos are beating them in a lot of them. The fact that NIP, I made the joke about Kamikaze bringing the MP5K, but we've seen Pino playing on the FMG the entire time on Smoke. There has really been no prioritization of site setup. On that last round, we saw a couple of impact holes that were in the walls. So there was one between Hookah and Billiards, and there was one at the top of Cool Vibes. Not abnormal places to see be set up. But the point is they are relying on those impacts to make that space because they want to be prioritizing their options to go elsewhere and play for fights. That is what they are doing. So this entire game, really, for the most part, is gunfights. You know, we're seeing a couple nades here and there. We've seen some C4s. But for the most part, that is what NIP have been after on their defense. Now, they're on attack. So really, if you're going for gunfights, you would kind of associate that more with this half. And I'm interested to see how that's going to go. I mean, every weapon, we obviously can't see the weapons that are in hand, but every weapon that's available to these operators that they've brought are pretty decent weapons. So there's not going to be anybody who is really disadvantaged in that sense. I'll be interested to see if Kamikaze does use the Hibana to, for example, open up the pink wall and maybe get a line of sight in from the roof or from luggage, which has become kind of popular, to specifically advantage their options. But I kind of, you know, look, they've brought 2 claymores along. So they're expecting aggression.
I think with Nomad being removed, it's probably wise to bring a couple of claymores, but even still, are they really going to be, you know, performing the job that maybe a gridlock could do, or a drone, or something of that nature, but we'll find out as we move through. I do feel like NIP are in that position where they don't really want to... It's tough to say they don't want to give anything away, but just in the lack of setup on defenses, they weren't really doing a great deal aside from, like you say, trying to win the gunfight. So it may be a situation where they're like, you know what, we're just going to try and take things easy today. We're not going to pressure ourselves too much with an extravagant setup, and we are just going to try and take fights. Now, that has to materialize a little bit differently on the attack, because they're going to get presented with a defense to try and work with. And look at this setup that Hunter's got himself inside a theater, and he's punched out both an angle into VIP and an angle through into Penthouse. So certainly got himself plenty to be going on here. It looks like a relatively direct approach from NIP as well. We've got a couple of players hanging outside on the hookah balcony. Kamikaze going to try and gain a bit of intel and get a lay of the land as to what's going on in the site.
Nice nade from Pino to open things out. Going straight on to Cons as well, who... I saw him holding the SMG-11. I assume he brought the shotgun, but I don't know for sure, but I would imagine that he was actually looking to play a little bit more anchory, in which case you can argue that the smoke loss is actually quite a big deal because there's not denial for the later round. You can see where some of those Havana players have been utilized as well onto the hookah wall. The next kill is going to go on to Destiny as Pino catches that one. Hunter's just trying to hold back a little bit, not wanting to get too close to those lines of sight that can be held from the balcony.
STK going to be holding the vertical here, and Kamikaze is going to be stuck if he wants to try and push on through. Could get gifted a kill here by Hunter if Hunter does play a little bit out of position, but Rise is also looking to try and make his way on up, so that would suggest that there isn't any control whatsoever inside of Billiards, but with the diffuser being in Kamikaze's hands, it's going to make things increasingly more difficult. A push has to come through now, and what an execute. Psycho and Kamikaze, they're going to find the final two. Didn't matter about that vertical angle, it was known and it was pre-fired.
Oh no, I mean, look, Santos is still holding the lead right now, but if NIP are going to come in with rounds like that, then the tides of this game could suddenly start shifting. Get it? Because that's like a season of Rainbow Six Siege.
A good one.
Tides. That had one of the best theme songs, in my opinion. I like the Shifting Sides music. But, yeah, anyway. Santos are going to be going back to Hookah Billiards. Let's see, what are these 6 picks that I see out the corner of my eye? Oh, a Glaz! Everyone's favorite meta operator. This is an interesting one. I'm actually quite excited to see what NIP do with this, because I feel like this is just going to descend into chaos.
NIP are that team that aren't afraid to bring the Cali. They're not afraid to bring the Glaz. Even if Glaz just sits on ruins, honestly.
No, that's boring.
What, you want to see Glaz entry?
Yeah.
Psycho entry being droned in by 4 people?
Yeah.
If it happens. I'd like to see it. Someone like Psycho could probably pull it off. He's going to get a kill. I don't know if he'll get 2, but you'd expect him to get a kill. You know, you'd expect him to have a successful entry.
So yeah, he's on 6 and 5. He's going positive.
I mean, I'm more meaning about the Glaz entry, like
supremacy. I mean, look, you could straight up see just how much Santos have invested into actually having a proper defensive setup of this site. They've got the ADSs. Oh my god, a Jaeger? Can you imagine? They got the ADSs, they got the shield, they've got the proper reinforcements and openings up. What are they called? Rotate holes.
All the things.
Everything. They've got electrification as well. So a lot of things that NIP didn't bring. And actually, interestingly, with the electrification, this is the round that NIP have opted not to bring a Thatcher.
It could slow NIP down a little bit there. And they've got to be conscious of, you know, just because the fact that they weren't doing any intricate site setup doesn't mean that Santos are going to be feeling the same way. Moosey's going to be playing on the balcony at the moment. Destiny in a position to give him something to think about. Rise inside of Aqua as well. Moosey's actually dropped on off. And here we go. like Psycho TV. We just watch him hold ruins. See if anybody glimpses on through. Just to have the reaction times of a, I don't know, very skilled player to really make anything happen there. But NIP are taking this one pretty slowly and pretty considered.
Right. And some damage there. So I guess, okay, he is going to just sit in ruins. Boring, Psycho! Get off my screen! No, but if you can actually get this kill, that would be pretty fun. Oh, no, he didn't manage to get it. But it does force Rise out of his position, knowing that he's being watched through the billiards window. There's not really much that Santos can actually do about that other than to avoid that crossfire. Which is kind of the entire point, you know? You just cut the site in half, and it makes it very difficult for the defenders to do much about it.
I'm surprised that Rise has actually been able to get himself out of Aquarium there, but he has done so. Oh, Cons, you've got to keep your crosshair placement. Julio, he's almost going to get gifted too as Destiny comes in, trying to refrag. Destiny's now just going to be laid inside a jungle and trying to keep himself alive. STK has moved back upstairs, trying to work some vertical angles just to alleviate some of that pressure and maybe, just maybe, allow Destiny to get himself out alive, but he's currently being pinched on multiple sides. Pino, it's not going to take him long to find that kill. It took him a bit longer than it could have done, but he eventually pops the head. Rise inside of billiards, trying to make something happen, and he will be the sole survivor. Now he's having NIP players thrown at him, but Pino going to make his way up those cool vibes after a successful entry through Kitchen. Shut down that last kill, and NIP on the comeback.
Well, as was the right choice, evidently. All right, so they've evened things out now. It's going to be into Kitchen. In Santos have kind of realized twice in a row that hookah just isn't it for them, which I think is fair. So let's see what it is they bring here. You know, they're leaning into the alibi, so I guess there's going to be some roam. But not quite to the same extent of what NIP were doing. Okay, this is the second Oryx 6-pick that we've actually had today. Now, I have a question, because I was thinking about this earlier when Muzi 6-picked onto Oryx, but, like, of all the Oryx 6-picks that you've seen, how many have you seen the Oryx survive the round long enough that they actually get to do some Oryxing?
It's seldom, isn't it?
It's not common.
I don't think we ever get to see any true Oryxing. I can probably count on one hand the amount of times that someone's made it up through a hatch successfully.
Yeah, like a late round flank. That's what you want to see.
I think it's for the... I honestly think the Bailiff plays a part. I think that's got a little bit of a part to play. The Wub-Wubs, they're going to be a little bit handy as well, but still, it's not worth a full... It's not worth bringing just for those two.
Yeah, I mean, especially like this, you've got 2 shotguns, you've got the Bailiff on Alibi as well. It's not like you're lacking for it.
I just want to see some, like, turbo run out. Where you really burst yourself in and really catch people by surprise. I think that's honestly the sole reason why Oryx gets chosen, just for those quicker rotations. Nomad being banned as well. Could have a chance here at, you know, getting himself around the map a little bit quicker. There's better things to bring, though.
Maybe Rise will be the one who gets a successful Oryx rotation.
The one.
Could be. Could be him. It is his destiny. Actually, Destiny's a different player on the team, but, you know, get the idea. Anyway, they are defending the site downstairs. Producer Simon. I mean, my jokes aren't funny.
I think they're funny.
Oh, Ollie. That makes one of us.
Yeah. Slow approach here from NIP. Not sure if they're recognizing that this one could be a bit of a tough one to crack or not, or if they're just taking the time in the entry, but we're almost at the halfway point and we haven't really seen an opening engagement just yet. There's been plenty of drone action going on, and vertical control has now been gained. For all that Santos are out on the roam, it hasn't really directly been challenging into that penthouse and VIP area. Hunter going to be playing at the bottom of White Stairs with a chance at rotating on up, but will more than likely try and hold himself in that position to try and cut off anybody pushing through the main door. Still a lot of setup here going on from NIP.
Yeah, really looking to take control of this upstairs. Pino's gonna start to open up the floor below. He's sending in some warning shots, but I suspect he'll be looking to throw his nade in to actually remove that shield down below him. Kamikaze is the first one to fall as Hunter gets that kill, and here's Pino prepping his nade, although it wasn't in the exact same position as before. Instead, he's actually gone round to the hatch of Master. He knows he's being watched. Oh, Rise manages to get away just narrowly with his life, but 2 of his teammates have gone down, make that 3 of his teammates have gone down at the same time. Now it's just him on his own.
And it all ends like that. It was a Muzi round. Yeah, I did. Because it was just like, now he's on his own, and then literally, bang, dead. Muzi there, going to be able to find the final kill in what was a very well executed round from NIP. Essentially just taking control of the site. It was, I think Santos were trying to do a little bit too much there in terms of that roam and that lurk and staying alive, because nothing that they were doing was really working for them. They didn't manage to keep sufficient control of Penthouse or Theatre or VIP for that matter, and they left the site a little bit light in doing so. So NIP just saw the opportunity there. It was a classic slow to execute round from NIP, and I think that that's something that is kind of seldom to see at the moment. They tend to have picked things up, particularly on the attack in terms of pacing. Regardless of the success, they have always been a pretty slow attacking side team, and I think that was sort of slipping back into what we saw quite a lot of inside of stage 1. But he got the job done, and I think that's what NIP's focus is going to be now. They've had a bit of a game. They've messed around a little bit on the defense with some sort of strange setups or not really much setup at all. But now they're poised only a couple of rounds away to try and take this one. I think we're probably going to see a couple more slower rounds develop from them because they do well under that pressure.
But one thing that we can say is NIP are doing better than they were doing yesterday. I did genuinely wonder. I did wonder how today was going to go off the back of their game yesterday. But, I mean, I just think the aggression that they've been looking to play with has been working pretty well for them. So, I mean, why not? Did NIP bring in Ashe last time? I feel like this isn't the exact same as what they had in the last round, but I can't remember.
I think it was an Iana. It was still the G36. But I think Muzi was playing the Iana last round. It's either Ashe or Iana at the moment for him, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense. Santos are also doing something very similar. I mean, they're back with the alibi. Kamikaze just looking to open up the X-Kairos holes through to the VIP wall. This is really just going to help them push Destiny out of the 90 position. NIP know very well that Santos are looking to hold quite strongly to the upstairs because of the importance of the vertical control down onto the site. They're having those direct lines of sight opened right onto those, you know, very stable anchor positions. It could be a big advantage for NIP if they can flush them out.
Hunter going to find opening kill this time onto Pino. Julio still trying to find something from the roof. He knows there's a player inside a luggage and eventually will strike down onto STK and be able to level things out there. He's being traded 1-for-1 here. Destiny seeing a load of damage come through. Julio trying to make some new angles for him to work with as well. Muzi just holding on. Got a very narrow angle in to the 90 corridor and onto Destiny. Destiny got a lot of utility here. He's got a surrogate and a shield, so almost going to perform as a pseudo Jaeger and keeping that shield alive and enabling him to play there for a little bit longer. Anybody that comes through into VIP is at risk of being challenged by him, and he needs to really be dealt with. We could see that happen with Julio's rotation, depending on where he comes in from. Psycho very confidently challenging onto that position, though. We do see him move through into Billiards. Cons holding the vertical as a sight player. Destiny feeling the pinch. He knows he has to try and move off now to be of use and of impact as the push comes through. There's only 20 seconds, and Controller 90 isn't really going to win the round here, but that rotation will. Destiny picks himself up 2 really important kills. Kamikaze and Julio are going to be the sole survivors here. 2 versus 3. Julio inside of the garden. He's going to find one. Kamikaze comes off the plan briefly and will find himself a kill, but Hunter the right place at the right time as the time was running exceptionally short. All he had to do was take down Kamikaze there. And Santos, they go back to level here.
God, that felt scrappy. Oh, man. Whoever wins this next round is, of course, going to be on match point, but I'm reluctant to believe that that's going to be, you know, the end of it and the expectation set. NIP and Santos going head-to-head. And to Blue Bar, which is where Santos teased out of going to the last round. They decided to return back to Kitchen instead. So this is actually the first time that they're visiting it. Both the Wamai and the Jaeger, so they're going to be working really hard against the potential projectiles. And as you said in that last round, using the Surya Gates is almost like a... It's like a fake Jaeger. I was going to say a budget Jaeger, but I think that's a bit cruel to Aruni because she's not a budget Jaeger.
Very cruel.
But they're not bringing Aruni this time. So actually having both the Jaeger and the Wamai together means, you know, you still have all of that protection against the potential projectiles that be coming in. Because Iana's not going to be brought once again by NIP, they actually only need to worry about nades coming from one source, and that's Pino. But of course, you know, there are still the projectiles that... Zafia and Ash carry, i.e. the breaching rounds and the lifelines. So.
An opportunity here for Santos to really cement themselves as quite the coastline team. It would be exciting if they're able to take down top... Well, it's not top 1 and 2, is it? It's going to be top 2 and 3 inside of BR6 on this map, which is a possibility here, and it's made even more likely with that opening kill from Cons. The opening pick has had quite a big swing in this map so far, especially with how well these two teams have been trading off the back of one another. Santos have done a fantastic job of keeping up with the pace that NIP set in terms of trades. And there, that pace is demonstrated. Kamikaze, he's able to take down Hunter, just straying a little bit too far away from that deployable shield. Enough for him to be taken on out.
Yeah, that was an unfortunate one. But, you know, it's a 4 versus 4, so, I mean, they're back to being evened out, I guess. And what I was talking about before about potential nades coming in from Pino, because he's not on the board anymore, no longer a concern. Julio's just looking to see if he can get some kind of an angle in through the hookah window, while Muzi's kind of hoping to pressure on from Kitchen. So again, it's these 2 different main routes in towards the site are being looked at by NIP. Now, Cons got caught out by Sauna before. I don't want to see it happen again, but he's trying to watch multiple angles at once, and that's kind of dangerous. Throws in a Toxic Babe canister to try and hold off any potential push from Sauna. He still knows, well, I was going to say, he still knows the Kitchen is a risk, but with STK bringing Muzi down, that's been freed up quite a bit for him.
I mean, why do you need to know where somebody is when you can just start wall banging a soft wall with a shotgun? That seems to do the job there for STK. Cottons, what a shot onto Kamikaze. Onto the diffuser carrier, no less. Toxic Babe canisters can do a bit of the job from here on out as Psycho and Julio try and pre-fire their way in. But all that has really done is announced their location. Rise still playing inside a kitchen. Could have something to say about Psycho, and if he tries to hop his way on through. There's still 30 seconds left here, so NIP aren't high and dry just yet. They do have a significant man disadvantage to deal with. A stun will land there over onto Cons. Julio still hasn't been able to pick up that diffuser, though. He's going to be in position to do so right now. What a hop-in from Psycho. Instantly traded as Rise is there to shut him down. Destiny finds the final kill from above. That vertical pressure that Santos have been so keen to use, both on the attack and on the defense, paying huge dividends for them. It puts them onto a match point here.
I'll be honest, it makes me kind of proud in a way, because the biggest criticism that we had for Santos back in stage 1 was the fact that they were just horrendous at using vertical control or vertical angles at all. And it's not just that they tried and it was bad, it was like they just wouldn't do it at all. So to see them really focusing down on that, not that this is the first time we've seen it from them, over the course of this stage, it has been appearing more and more. But knowing that it's such an integral part of the approach that they're going for, that's nice to see. It's kind of like seeing your kid, you know, like graduate school or something. I don't know. Anyway, Santos now sit on match point. So if they defense, the game is theirs. They will beat NIP. However, they're going to be returning to Hookah Billiards, which is a site that they've tried to defend twice already, and both of those times they failed.
I think the really nice thing for Santos is the fact that they haven't made a change coming into stage 2 either. So it's been really good to see them further develop that sort of teamwork and that synergy that we've come to know from them. So again, it's nice to see them coming out here and getting results against NIP, regardless of the game that NIP are bringing. They're playing the game. Santos are playing the game that they're faced with. They're playing the game in front of them. And so far, they're doing a better job of it than NIP. Now, as you mentioned, Gio, it's going to be tough trying to defend up here. But again, another round and another bout of changes on the side of NIP and what they are bringing in terms of operators. Psycho is going to be on the Twitch this time instead of the Glaz. The Glaz did provide quite a bit of sort of sight cut-through potential, playing on the ruins and just taking pot shots through big window at anybody that tried to pass through. This time it could be a slightly different approach, as Psycho is likely not going to be playing in that position with the F2. He's more than likely going to be getting himself into some engagements. The Santos a big chance here to come away with 3 points when they desperately need them.
Well, they got to get there first. Got to prove that they can change their strategy here on Hookah Billiards compared to what they had before. Now, NIP played a couple of different attacking strategies onto this site, the notable list of which was their Glaz. They've decided not to bring that this time, instead opting for the F2 in the hands of Twitch, which is going to be Psycho once again. Now, we've kind of speculated that a lot of the reason we're seeing a lot of Twitch play lately is more because of the gun than it is necessarily because of the shock drones. So, likelihood is Psycho wants to be making very good use of that weapon. SEK doesn't get anything with the C4, as there wasn't really anyone on the window, and you can kind of see the silhouette looking to move back a bit. Julia takes a tiny bit of damage, but nothing too major, and he too can just move back.
Kind of a strange C4 from STK, honestly. You would expect him to be trying to keep hold of that for a little bit more guaranteed value. Muzi this time going to find the opener onto Rise. So Santos not sat in the greatest of positions at the moment. Hunter will be in position to try and respond, though, and he will do so in taking down Muzi. NIP look like they could be framing up for a bit of a push in through Hookah now, as there are a couple of players stacked up, and Julio is going to make that job a little bit easier, taking down Cons. Going to remove the smokes. Going to make it very difficult from here on out to try and stop this flow of attackers coming through. Hunter, what are you doing so out of position? Santos are crumbling under the pressure here. They're being taken out at every turn. Destiny, the final player to have something to say, and he too will fall to Pino. The upside down repel there inside of Hookah. Very powerful position, always going to be tough to get out of that one. And we confirm a bit of an overtime.
A little bit of an overtime. Prorogation. Yeah. So, Santos is going to be starting things off on the defense for overtime, which automatically, I think, puts them at a disadvantage because defense is the side that they've struggled the most with against NIP. So, they will have to win both a defense and an attack if they are going to... Well, I suppose they could win 2 defenses, but it's more likely that they're going to have to win a defense and an attack in order to win. So, ideally, for Santos, you want to win this first defense here. So, as I say, going to kitchen, they won one of their kitchen defenses. They lost the other one. Which is kind of why I was curious as to why they even went back to hookah in that last round. Because that was their worst site that they've been to in this whole game. But that aside, we are living in the present, not the past. And Santos will begin to set up for their defense.
Just feel like a little bit of a missed opportunity there for Santos, especially with the way that they played that last round. It was just a little bit loose and a little bit fast. Considering we've seen them play aggressively but tempered throughout the course of this game, it did come as a little bit of a surprise. See that one go so quickly toward NIP, but again, it kind of circles back to something that we were talking about earlier in that NIP are that team that are just capable of turning it on. And rounds like the previous one prove that, you know, they have got an extra gear, and they do sometimes move up into that. Still, it takes us into an overtime to find a winner between these two. It's of course not ideal for Santos, given that they were on that match point. They could have come away with 3 points, which would have been ideal, but alas, they will have to settle for a potential 2, or at least a guaranteed 1. They do start off on the defense here. Now, attack is where Santos did exceptionally well. They were able to get 4 rounds on the attack. There's maybe not too much of an advantage to be found here, although Hunter is going to pick off Julio in the opening part of the round.
Good start, especially given, of course, what I said about their disadvantage being on the defense. Gonna be a little bit of a fight for the lobby entrance. But nothing too much to actually push the presence off of white stairs. And STK can actually rotate in basically for free. They know that NIP are putting a lot of attention over here, and so Santos are focusing on that. But, you know, if you're Santos, you don't want to neglect any of the other potential entrances, and that's why Rise is still over here in Sunrise. Not quite going to commit to the C4 just yet, but it'll be Psycho to get the next kill, and that's onto Cons.
Ooh, Kamikaze gets away with a bit of a careless swing there. Psycho backing him up, taking down STK. 3 versus 4. Still not a terrible position for Santos to be in. Hunter now trying to make his way back on into the site as Rise gets himself chipped on down. It's almost role reversal here as side control has pretty much been given up here to the side of NIP, and they're going to come up with all the kills as well. Destiny takes down a squandering Kamikaze, but ultimately it's going to be down to Muzi to pick up those pieces yet again. Coming around the corner, a flurry of trades there to finish things off. NIP, they put themselves onto an overtime match point.
Alright, well now they are going to be the ones defending. And again, for them, this was the side that they struggled on the most. They successfully defended Hookah once, and they successfully defended Sunrise and Blue once. Looks like they're going to be going to Hookah. I mean, again, unsurprising. This is basically where everybody goes. And what NIP were doing before is basically little to no site setup, and they played very broadly around the map. I mean, imagine just an extreme roam. That was basically what NIP were doing. Interesting that they've decided to switch off the Vigil and actually 6-picked onto Elysian. I want to see what this 6-pick from Rise is going to be. Jackal. Actually, I think that's quite smart. Given the way that NIP were playing on the first half, having a Jackal should be a huge help to them. You have to remember, of course, that NIP banned out Lion right at the beginning of the game. They knew that Lion would be incredibly detrimental against this way that they are planning and playing. And almost it's strange that this is the first time that Santos have opted to bring a direct alternative to that operator, knowing how helpful it would be against this playstyle that NIP have been exhibiting.
I think it's a good move. I like the Jackal a lot, and I'm surprised it's taken us until this point to see one. Could be a bit of a difference maker here for Santos. They do sit on a must-win round to take it to max OT. There has just been a certain way that NIP have started to move over the last 3 rounds when things have really started to matter that has made them look a little bit unstoppable, though. And I do wonder and worry about Santos in that regard. Players like Psycho and Pino have really started to ramp things up. Even Kamikaze, who we don't usually look to for a ton of kills inside of this game, has really been getting himself involved. It's just going to make it a little bit more difficult for Santos to try and establish themselves here. This was the site that we didn't really, or at least I didn't have a lot to say about Santos's attack. They kind of came through into all the hotspots that were being held by NIP in round number 1. Since then, we did see them attack onto it relatively well. And it looks as though at least this time we are seeing that approach again. There's pressure and presence inside of Aquarium Balcony. Mozzie Pest is very carefully navigated there.
Yeah, I mean, really with the way that NIP have been playing, you need as many drones as possible. So it's especially important that you don't get caught up in any of the pests. Now, I do like that Santos are actually having an approach that directly faces the site. One of the big complaints that we had back in round number 1 was the fact that they were off chasing NIP elsewhere and didn't really focus on the site whatsoever. And that's part of the reason why NIP found the victory on that round. But this time, they are going for the objective. If NIP want to rotate back and take the fight where they are, cool. Santos are down for that. They just want to get into the site.
Hunter going to be inside of Aquarium. This time he gets chunked down. He had a big part to play in a previous round in that very spot. Draws for the nade, but it was all a little bit too little, too late. 3 versus 3 as a messy engagement finishes up inside of Aquarium, but only for a time. Muzi, he's going to be the next to swing on to Cons, taking him out of the picture. STK from below saw success in the previous round with nades, but this time hasn't got any to speak of. And instead will try and rotate himself up into Aquarium. Rise is going to be on the hooker balcony. The diffuser cold on the ground, but it's in the middle of the doorway. It's going to be difficult to recover from here. Rise maybe has a bit of intel as the player playing behind the bar. The diffuser will be recovered. Smoke canisters now tossed on out, but Toxic Babes come back in return. Pino, he's going to be there to shut down Rise. It's all now down to STK. Going to find himself 3 kills here. He can't even land the first. Pino with the swing is going to get the job done. A shaky game from NIP, but again, they prove why they're one of the best teams in the world. They put the foot down, they switch the mentality, and they're able to get the win here.
They really went for the aggressive approach today, and it certainly paid off. Even if in overtime, that is another victory in the books for NIP. Especially making up for the loss that they suffered yesterday. They'll be walking away pretty happy with that one, I should imagine. And there were certainly some rounds where Santos played quite well, but I think they were challenged for pretty much the entire way throughout this game. It's not like they've lost a qualification off the back of it, but I suspect their pride probably takes a bit of a hit.
I think just having the opportunity to win the game before NIP did and not being able to do so is probably going to be the thing that hurts Santos the most there. And again, it comes down to, being able to close out a game. It was from that point onwards that we saw NIP really take things